Greetings and welcome back to the lab. Today we're going to talk about the car project again, the Wedge, and there's been some developments. I've been running into some difficulties, but I've got a new plan. So let's take a look at the history of what I've been trying to do here. First of all, we had this one, which I tried to do, and I realized first I had a problem with this little dip for some reason, which I still can't completely understand because it was printed like this. So if anything's going to happen, you think this would go the other way. You think it would droop and go the other way. But instead, there's an arch here. I don't get that, but I cleaned everything out that needed to be cleaned out. Well, almost everything. And what I ended up with, it just wasn't working. I couldn't get the LEDs to go into the little holes here that I have for them, for the headlights, and in this case for the taillights, the high mount, the turn signal, and the other brake light. That just wasn't working. Plus, the windows weren't fitting, but that's sort of a separate issue. Now, the problem here is I can't quite get a drill bit in there. And these are my drill bits. So what I've been doing is these are all 5mm. I just had to buy a pack of 5 of them. But if I take this drill bit, and I try and fit it here, there's like no really good way to turn it to try and clear it out. Plus, I got to get it at just the right angle. So that was becoming a difficulty. And so with all of those things in mind, I went ahead and I printed it again, this time in white. And there was a bunch of stuff to cut off here. And I don't mind that this is a little rough right now. The plan was to sand on it and get it nice and neat. What I ended up with here is a little bit on the jagged side. So I thought, okay, at least it's straight. So I can work with that. I can sand it and get it to work for me. But I ran into the same problem. Plus, I added a new feature here, which ultimately now I'm not going to use for the moment. But it was the same problem. I can't get the drill bit in here to try and clear this out, and it's not printing clear by itself. So hopefully you can see that I can't seem to get the plastic out of here or up here, especially where this slot is, and up here. So these were causing real problems. And I was thinking and trying to come up with a way that I could get a drill bit in there or a different tool or something. And maybe there is a tool that I'm not realizing. And if you know the tool that I should be trying to use, that doesn't cost too much money, because I'm trying to keep this simple so that other people can do it and accessible so that somebody with access to a printer can print the parts and put this together. So after thinking on it a bit, I realized maybe actual lights are not the solution. That's when I came up with this. And this is a 2-part system. I printed on a raft and with support in hopes that that'll keep everything nice and flat and straight and it doesn't warp. And I'm going to have to remove the supports from here, but ultimately this piece will go inside that piece. There are no holes for the lighting. I'm leaving the lighting out, but I'll be able to decorate the inner piece and then stick it into the outer piece so that I can get some color presented out the back and out the front and maybe out the sides, depending on how you want to do it. So let's see what happens when I try and break this off the raft. Oh, nice. Some of the support materials come in with it. Ooh. Looks like all the support material came with it. That makes it much easier. So now I've got the outer shell. It has the slot here. Even if it's slightly warped, that's still going to work. This looks fairly clean, although I can see some roughness. And I think what that is since it was printed like this and printed at low quality, because I do these at low quality so I can test the idea. If I want super fine resolution here. This is like a jagged edge here. And that just comes from the fact that the printer is running straight like this. And so it has less work to do up here than it had to do at the very bottom or top, per se, since it was upside down. So it's just a low resolution problem, and I can probably sand that and make it look a little bit better. In the back, it looks like the only sanding I'm going to need to do is just to get rid of some of the little bits, the strings that are kind of hanging off of it. So, wow, that was surprising. If you do this, it may not be that easy for you. It might not come off so simply, but I'm quite happy with that. So let's see if we can't get the other piece off. There we go. So there's your inner, and if I'm lucky, there should be about a 0.5 millimeter all the way around for me to drop that in. And that is far more than a 0.5 millimeter and not nearly as tall as I thought it was going to be. Oh, well, let's take a look at what this is like. I don't know. Maybe I'll do it like this. Because you're going to have to glue it. It's not exactly snapped together. It's not a pressure fit. So somehow my measurements were way off. Even though I modeled this thing, I'll even show you a rendering of the model with both of these pieces together. I don't know how it could be that far off. But, hey, this is why we do prototypes. So the idea was that would then leave you with a window here and some kind of backing to it. And I can still put an insert for the window here, for the windows here. And as far as like the headlight, there would be some backing there. And my plan was, and I ordered something for this, I bought some tape. This is technically gaffer tape, but it's much narrower than gaffer tape normally is, and probably thinner. But this is something I found on Amazon. I'll put a link to it in the description. And the idea was that you could put the tape around the inner and then put a little bit of glue. Well, you don't want to put it right in the middle. You want to put it like a little bit of glue here, a little bit of glue there, or something like that. And then put the outer shell on top of it and make sure it's centered. And bingo, you got everything assembled. And the colors of the tape should shine right through here. So let me try and do that real quick. Which color do I want? Let's see. Let's go with the yellow. Let's get that out. And there wasn't a white. If you search around, you probably find some more tape that you could use for white. The beauty of the tape is it's repositionable and you don't have to get into paints and all the rest of that. But if you happen to have some like acrylic paints, something that's compatible with PLA plastic, or if you print it in a different plastic, that's up to you. But something that is compatible with the plastic that you print your model in. Yeah, let's see if I can't just rip this. Nice. See, you don't have to be the neatest person in the world to do this. Well, I should have considered it's actually, the inner is actually smaller than the tape. Let's see if I can get that reasonably straight. Kind of hard when the model is dark. Well, let's just do that for the moment. Put that on here. Okay, I see another modification I need to make. Because the tape is not, I didn't get it perfectly straight, but it's not going all the way to the top here. Wow. Okay. Let me just do this a little bit differently. And so I'm thinking what I might need to do is actually move the headlight slot down a little bit so it'll be able to work with the tape. At this point, I'm just going to put the tape. I'm going to be really sloppy about it, but so it goes over on the top of the inner here. This is just proof of concept. This is not the final version. I was kind of hoping it was, but Yeah, that's a little bit better, but I definitely need to move it down. So there's that color. And this is, by the way, these are ultraviolet activated. They're not glow in the dark. They are fluorescent. So if you hit them with a black light, then they will glow. Like if you're old enough to remember like the posters from the 1970s, it'd be kind of like that. So if you were to have this not in a bright light like it is right now, but it could, kind of light up in the dark. That was kind of the thinking on that. The other possibilities, you just get some tapes that have the actual colors that you want, and hopefully it shows through. So let's try the. See, now in fluorescent colors, this would be more of a red once it gets hit with the ultraviolet. There's the end of it. I'll get a little bit of this. Let's do the high mount. Okay, it's going to mangle the tape if I'm not careful. There we go. It is a cloth tape, so it's going to be a little bit more difficult to rip, but it won't kind of warp the way a plastic tape would. Let's see if this will work out here. Oh, I guess that's too much because it's showing through the back window itself. But if I were to paint the back window black and then stick it in there, then you wouldn't be able to see any of this. But there you go. Now you can kind of see a nice line up there. So this one I think is okay. I'm just going to have to literally take the tape and a pair of scissors and just cut a strip going that way. And then you can get in your turn signal and your other brake lights. And so for the turn signals, I was thinking the orange would make sense. That's why I bought this particular set. Unfortunately, like I said, there's no white. So I figured this is the closest you're going to get to white. And if you're doing it under black light, colors are going to be a little off. But that was the idea. This is kind of interesting that this worked the way it did. I'm kind of looking at this and wondering if I can actually paint that and make it a window. I don't think that's going to fit in there quite right. Wow. This is pretty jagged right here. Yeah, I can feel it. It's warped yet again. So maybe what I need to do is I need to take this B pillar, move it forward a bit more, and then have yet another. So this is going to be 3 windows on the side. And that'll give it a chance that when it's printing upside down, here's the print surface, and it's not having to span across quite as far. It looks like, yeah, it's warped, just like this was warped. Actually, does this fit in here since it's too small? Oh, is that where I messed up? I mean, it's really far off. I don't know how I messed it up that bad. So I'm going to have to go back to my 3D program and fix things. But there you go. This is kind of the thinking for the third iteration of this attempt. And I think this is still clean enough, at least for now, that I can print a new inner shell, not worry about the outer shell. And wow, is that off? I'll be able to print a new inner shell and try and stick that in there. So that's where we are at this moment on this project. Now that I think of it, you could probably put tape on here too, and tape in the back somehow to, instead of dealing with actual windows, there is a bit much of a recess. It's kind of odd to have the wind kind of coming up over the car and across what would have been kind of the dashboard. So things to think about. If you've got comments, ideas, suggestions, whatever, please drop them in the comments. And I would love to hear what you're thinking about this, or if you just think it's a really stupid project. But this is because I want to do more complicated sort of car models and stuff like that. And I'm trying to learn lessons from it. So the initial efforts may not be the fanciest looking things, the most refined looking models, but I got to learn how to do these things and to figure out the problems that I'm going to run into so I can get that figured out. Yeah, I guess that's about it. Sorry, I'm a little flustered because I'm trying to think my way through this while I'm also talking to you. Thank you, though, so much for watching and participating in this. Like I said, comments. I welcome your comments, suggestions. I welcome your suggestions. And we'll leave it at that until the next episode. Thank you so much for watching.